Hey guys, Michael Hyatt here. Thanks for joining me for the Daily Mentor. That's what I'm going to be calling the show. In case you don't know me, I'm the author of Platform Get Noticed in the Noisy World, which is a New York Times bestseller. Also blog at michaelhyatt.com. And I've just started scoping here maybe 4 or 5 days ago. I think this is my 4th broadcast. So Matt Crane, hello, how you doing? Love your book. Help me grow so much. Somebody says, hey, Michael. Somebody from Australia. Wow, somebody from France. Oh, my gosh. Tamara, love the Daily Mentor idea. Thank you so much. Yep, and I see Marissa there. Woohoo, Dad. Awesome. Hi from Phoenix. Hi from Indianapolis and from Texas. They're scrolling by so fast I can't keep up. One ground rule for today that would be hugely helpful is I'm going to kind of summarize my blog post. And if you want to read it, it's at michaelhyatt.com/wealth. That's just a little short code to get you right to the blog post if you want to do a quick review. Hopefully you read it already, but if you didn't, that's okay. But we're going to talk about how to raise kids who are entrepreneurs. And in terms of ground rules, I'm going to kind of summarize the post. And then from the post, what we're going to do is take your questions. And I just want to ask you if you would do the questions this way. Put 2 question marks at the beginning of your comment so that I can separate it from all the shout outs and all that kind of stuff. And then if you can also put your name first in all caps so I can call you by name. And Madeline just reminded me that I want to ask you if you would help me by sharing this scope by swiping left to right if you're on an iPhone and swiping down if you're on an Android phone and just sharing this with your friends. We'll take a few minutes for people to come in. So Krista says she just got 5 days to your best year ever. Neil's from Copenhagen is here. I think you've been on before, Neil, so great, welcome. Yep, so this is a tip. I got this actually from Shalene to start your question with 2 question marks at the beginning of the comment. That'll be hugely helpful to me. Yeah, I'm loving this medium. You know, I think it's going to be fun. Basically what I've committed today, would you like to hear, by the way, kind of my plan for scope? Because I don't do anything really without a plan. But so here's kind of the plan. So I'm thinking that I'll do a daily show that'll be from, be about 30 minutes long, but Monday through Friday. I don't want to do it on the weekends because I really want that to be off time for me and for you. I'm jealous that you have margin in your life like I want it for my own life. So we'll just do it for about 30 minutes once a day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's going to be based on the blog post that I do that morning or the podcast that I do on Wednesday mornings. Tuesday and Thursday, total free-for-all. I'll just take whatever questions you have. Somebody said that's an ambitious way to go. I don't know. I don't know if it's too ambitious or not. We'll just try it as an experiment and kind of see what happens. I'm going to make sure that my head is in the top third here, if I can do this without breaking my iPad. Okay, so somebody asked me, what doTERRA oils do I use in my office? I mainly use one called Balance. You know, it just kind of keeps me focused, keeps me upbeat. And so, yeah, I do use essential oils in my office. Yep, somebody said is just kind of recounting that I'm going to scope Monday through Friday. Okay, again, I'm Michael Hyatt. If you don't know me, I blog at michaelhyatt.com. I'm the author of the New York Times bestseller, Platform Get Noticed in a Noisy World. I have a podcast called This Is Your Life, and that is published every Wednesday. We took last week off, but it publishes every Wednesday on iTunes. I hope you listen to it. Okay, so guys, hold your questions for just a second. I'm going to kind of summarize the post that I published this morning, and then we'll go at it, okay? So the post was entitled, How to Raise Kids Who Understand Wealth Building. So, you know, I would be the first to admit that wealth isn't everything. You know, there's a lot of things that money can't buy, but there's also a lot of things that money can buy, including margin and the ability to influence people and the ability to leverage your gifts and your talents. So those are among some of the things that wealth can buy. But I really want to talk about how do you raise kids that are entrepreneurs? Because here's the deal. I've got 5 daughters, 5 grown daughters. And they're about 10 years from the oldest to the youngest. The youngest one is 25 or 24. She'll be 25 in November. And that's Marissa. She's the only one that's single, by the way. But really, all of them are entrepreneurs. One of them is arguably maybe not an entrepreneur, but she's married to an entrepreneur and is very entrepreneurial in the way that she thinks. And so I get asked all the time, how did you raise these 5 daughters to be entrepreneurs? Because all of them are making tremendous money. Some of them making phenomenal money. Some of them are making money in their 20s that it took me till I was in my 50s to make that kind of money. And so how did we do it? You know, is this just kind of a gene thing? In other words, is it something that genetically we passed on to them? Because my dad was an entrepreneur. Or is it something that's environmental, some kind of environment that we created or some kind of context that we created to build that? And I quoted in the blog a study that was done in Sweden that indicates that it really has to do more with the environment that you create as a parent than the genetic code that you pass on to somebody else, okay? So here's what I said. I said there's basically 4 different elements that you need to intentionally build into your family if you want to raise entrepreneurs. Now, I have a bias. I love entrepreneurs. I love the entrepreneurial mindset, the mindset that says, you know, I want to create value for other people. That's really what an entrepreneur is, somebody who creates value for other people such that people are willing to exchange their money or some other commodity in exchange for that thing you're providing of value. So I love entrepreneurialism. You know, I worked in corporate America for years where my salary was kind of the limit or whatever bonus I could eke out. But when you're an entrepreneur, the sky's the limit. It really has to do with your creativity and everything else. So Bassetti says, I know for sure it's not genes, but we're encouraging our boys to go for gold. Good for you. So here's the 4 elements that I think were important that we intentionally tried to build into the lives of our kids. Number 1, and these were corroborated, big word, corroborated by this study in Sweden. Number 1, impulse control. You know, sadly, this is something that people don't seem to have as much of today as they did even in my parents' time. You know, people would never think about going into debt when my parents were born. I mean, that just wasn't the way you did things. You saved up and you bought things. My generation, I think, went less into debt. Today, I think people are more ready, or it's easier for them to go into debt. But I think there's now a backlash against that. Thankfully, because of people like Dave Ramsey, who has made, paying for things cash kind of the new status symbol. And the thing about impulse control, and we would tell our girls, you can afford it when you have the cash to pay for it. Don't go into debt. And if you think you need to go into debt for something, you can't afford it. And when we do this as parents, and believe me, we model by the lifestyle that we live. You know, more is caught by our children than is taught by us. You can talk yourself. That's the first time that's happened on a scope. Somebody calling. But one of the things that can happen sometimes is that people think that they can afford it and they're just going to go into debt for it. That you can't afford it, you know, if you go into debt for it. And, you know, there's some exceptions like a house, and I get that it's more complex than that. But the key thing you're modeling to your kids is impulse control. They're going to catch that from the way that you live, not what you preach to them, okay? So somebody said, Tabitha says, my parents lived in debt, still do, hard to teach myself the right way. I know, and it really comes down to impulse control. I like what my friend Andy Andrews says about discipline, and this is apropos to this. Discipline is the ability to make yourself do something you really don't want to do in order to get a result you really want to get. Do you get that? The ability to make yourself do something you really don't want to do in order to get a result you really want to get. That's from my friend Andy Andrews, at Andy Andrews on Twitter. But that's really what impulse control comes down to. You know, can you keep yourself on track, working for something without experiencing the reward till later? This is a key element in wealth building. Second one is hustle. You know, teaching your kids a work ethic, you know, so that they're willing to work hard. Now, I'm not talking about a workaholic, and believe me, I over-dialed this. I was a workaholic for decades, and a trip to the emergency room, almost made that something fatal. I didn't have a heart attack, thankfully. It was a panic attack, but my doctor told me if I didn't get this dialed back, it was going to be a huge problem, and I was going to end up with a health problem. So it is important to have balance. Having said that, there is nothing like hustle. If you want your kids to be entrepreneurs, if you want them to be wealthy, if you want them to actually make a dent in the world, you've got to be able to teach them hustle. And all my girls have this. All of them have unbelievable work ethics, and I think that's just from being around us. We've modeled that. Third element, self-improvement. I have my dad to thank for this. My dad is the consummate learner. Whenever he wanted to learn something, I don't care if it was photography or something else, he would just buy all the books, start studying it like crazy, immerse himself in it, and learn it. And he was kind of a serial hobbyist. And I would say that I'm kind of the same thing. But I love to learn. I'm constantly going to seminars. I'm constantly reading books. And I would just ask you guys, how are you modeling that to your kids? Are you a learner? Are you availing yourself of all the tools that are available today? And so Tyler said, you buy it for them? Did I buy what for them? Did I buy them books and stuff? Yeah, sometimes occasionally. I remember one time my dad paid me to read a book, The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, but that was secondary. He mostly gave me a love for learning. And so I would just urge you guys to pursue self-development. Realize your potential. Become more than who you are today. And then the final thing is teaching people gratitude. And Joel said, how early can you start on all this stuff? You can start right away. I mean, honestly, I think little kids could learn this, whether it's picking up their toys, hustle, whether it's learning gratitude, to be thankful for what they have. Gratitude is the antidote to scarcity, and more importantly, it's an antidote to entitlement. If there's one thing that's the antithesis to entrepreneurialism and the antithesis to wealth building, it's this sense of entitlement. And so I think you've got to be really, really careful about that. So anyway, that's the summary of the post. So let's talk about it. So if you've got a question, again, I would just ask you in the comments to precede it with 2 question marks, then give me your name in all caps, and then ask whatever you want. And I'm even happy to go off topic. So let's do this. Madeline asked me, what was the best thing that happened to me today? That was actually a question. Madeline's one of my daughters, number 4. And this was a question that we ask at dinner every night around the table. We would say to the girls, this was, again, to build gratitude and to get our kids away from this attitude of entitlement and scarcity. We'd say, what was the best thing that happened to you today? Now, our kids were like any other kids. Some of them would be kind of whiny and mopey, and they would say, well, nothing good happened today. And so Gail would say, my wife would say to the kids, okay, well, if you had to say one thing, what would it be? And Madeline just said, Sean and I still do that at dinner. Madeline, Mom, and I still do that at dinner too, as you well know, because you've been over to dinner, and we often start dinner with that same question. What was the best thing that happened to you today? Susan said, can you also apply these to your work team? Absolutely. Here's the deal. The people around you, the people that you influence, if you're the leader or the parent, are going to become like you. That's the good news and the bad news. If you want to change your team, if you want to change your kids, start by changing yourself. Chris says, which daily habits do you believe help embed these principles? I'll tell you what, one of them is getting up early. And we succeeded with our girls in some ways with that, maybe not so much with others, but getting up early, just not having a sense of entitlement, but learning a work ethic to get up early and go after it. Lori says, I have twins going into the 11th grade. Can you give one practical tip for that age? Yes, a part-time job. I would not give them all their money. I would make them earn some of their money. You could match it. There's a lot of practical things you could do there, but I would make them work so that they correlate the stuff they get with the work that they expend. Marissa said, yes, 3, 4 exclamation points. Marissa's another daughter of mine. Marissa said, had my first actual job at 13. Marissa, type in here what it was. I don't remember. Ruben said, what books would you read to your kids? Chronicles of Narnia, and oh my gosh, Anne of Green Gables. If I've, reading those books, watching the movies, Dario said, how can teachers create this type of environment? I think in the school. I lost it before it went off. Same way, model it. Also have them read Dave Ramsey book for their age. Yeah, I think he does have some kids' books too, and I would definitely encourage that. Brian said, I was thinking about making my kid build his own eBay store to get started at 13. Fantastic. Get him started blogging. Get started with an online business. I mean, we live in the most extraordinary time in history. Do you guys get that? The world is at our fingertips. We really can build businesses. We really can make our own way and become entrepreneurs. Jeremy said his first job was at 14. Corn detasseling. I have no idea what that is. Shaped my work ethic a lot. It sounds hard. Sienna says she's back in. Awesome. At Mary Grassel, Grassl, many places hire starting at 15. Yes, they do. And you can hire your own kids and have them do chores, but give them money that relates to it. Here's the helpful book from Dave Ramsey, Smart Money, Smart Kids by Dave Ramsey and his daughter, Rachel. Somebody said they were giving psychic readings at 5. Okay, whatever, that's crazy. Seth says, does encouraging our kids to live close to family, small town, limit their potential? I don't think so. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't encourage them. All 5 of my daughters live probably within 15 miles of my house, but we never said to them, live close to us. I don't think they're codependent. It's just that we love being around each other and we love our environment here. AMB, underline 416, said been working since he was 22. First, whoops, I missed it. Sorry. Marissa said, tell about when we got grounded and had to buy back our freedom, the best. Okay, this was awesome. So I busted 2 of my daughters. I won't go into the details of what I busted them for, but it was bad. I mean, they were in trouble. And so I took away their cell phone and I took away their cars and I made them have to buy them back. I mean, not the whole value of it, but they had to earn enough money to be able to buy them back. It was awesome. And they learned a great lesson. Marissa says, best parenting move ever, but not at the time. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you could have heard the whining and the complaining about that and how unreasonable it was, and here, a decade later, they look back on it, she looks back on it and says, lesson learned. So, cool. Okay, other questions? Somebody coming in from Peru. Brian, great. Yeah, by the way, the Dave Ramsey EntreLeadership podcast, I just recorded a session for them last week and absolutely love that podcast. It's one of my favorite. Tabitha, re-ask your question. I missed it. Sorry, it scrolled by too fast. Chris Cook says, so much respect for you and Gail. That's awesome. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that very much. Yeah, we definitely didn't do everything perfect with our daughters. I mean, we made so many mistakes, guys. You don't have to be the perfect parent. I love what Dr. Dobson said. This was a great encouragement to me when we felt like we were screwing up. And that is, the average kid can survive the average number of mistakes made by the average parent. Thank God for that. Bethany says, my 7-year-old wants to write an ebook to help kids who have parents fighting cancer. Awesome. Encourage that kind of creativity. I've got one of my granddaughters right now writing a book. She just messaged me the other day and asked me if I could edit it for her. Scott says, can you explain practical examples of hustle walked out? Again, I would give them jobs. I don't care if it's a lemonade stand in front of your house, like 2 of my granddaughters have done, or like my oldest daughter, Megan, who now works for me. She started cleaning houses. We probably were in violation of some kind of labor law on this, but she started cleaning house for like $10 or $12 an hour when she was 10 years old. I mean, unbelievable. But she just had that kind of work ethic, and we encouraged it. You know why? Because she wanted to buy a horse. And so we never wanted to throttle the kids' dreams. We simply wanted to tell them that they had to work to get those dreams. Marissa says, chore list, babysitting, cutting grass. Absolutely. Like if we had special chores, and the grandkids call for these all the time, if we had special chores, we would pay them for those special chores. Somebody said, can you speak on the community bad global impact from this approach? I don't understand that question. I'm sorry. Scott says, how does faith play into taking on the entrepreneurial mindset? That's a good question. I'm not sure I've really thought about that, other than to say, I think that if you're going to be successful as an entrepreneur, it's going to require that you have faith. You know, faith in something bigger in yourself, probably faith in your own abilities, The courage to be able to get outside of your comfort zone, huge, huge. We celebrate at my family getting outside of your comfort zone. You know, maintaining the status quo, just doing what makes you comfortable, you know, that doesn't help anybody. Amy said, needed that reminder of Average Quote by Dobson. Awesome. Yeah, faith's a big part of it. I promise you, I couldn't be successful if it weren't for my faith, because there were times when I didn't have two nickels to rub together, didn't know how I was going to make ends meet, didn't know how I was going to make payroll. And it was really my faith that kept me out of it. Daryl, I hope I'm not botching your name. Any tips for how a high school teacher can implement this info in class? Well, I would take each one of these elements from the blog post. Again, it's at michaelhyatt.com/wealth, and ask yourself, what's an action step that you can give on this? So for example, impulse control. You know, is there a project that the class collectively decides they want together? How could they do odd jobs, make money, and save for it? Or for hustle, you know, that could be the same thing. I mean, just the work to get there. Self-improvement. Give them a book that teaches them self-improvement. You know, something like The Power of Positive Thinking, which is a tremendous book on this topic. A lot of people poo-poo it, but I learned so much about how my thoughts shape my reality from that book. So that's a tremendous book. Guys, again, if you're just joining us, I'm Michael Hyatt from michaelhyatt.com, and we're talking about how do you raise entrepreneurial kids. Tabitha said, my kids have an entitlement attitude, stubborn like me, best way to deal with it. I would talk about the attitude of gratitude, and I would really focus on that. Being grateful, because see, here's what happens with entitlement. You know, you're focused on what you don't have, and you think that you deserve it. Instead, I would focus on what you do have and really focus on being thankful for that. And that's where that question around the table, like Gail and I asked with our kids as they were growing up, what's the best thing that happened to you today, is a great way to start. Again, by the way, you can share this scope by sliding on, if you got an iOS device, sliding left to right and then sharing it, and I'd be grateful for that, or a Droid device sliding down. Saka talks about investing in his nephew's smoothie stand, pitch and everything. Yeah, that's an awesome thing to do. We've given our grandkids space to do that right on a main street where we live. When you serve others less fortunate than you, you'll feel grateful. One year for Christmas, on Christmas Day, we went to the rescue shelter and we just served people at the shelter. And, you know, in some ways you could be cynical and just say, well, that was a token and it really didn't matter that much. I'm going to tell you something. That had a profound impact on the kids and the grandkids, especially at a time of year when we get more stuff that we probably don't need and we realize that there's a whole strata of society that struggles to have anything. And so to do that, highly recommended. Serving others gets the focus off self. Absolutely right. And we don't need more self-absorption. We don't need more narcissism. We need more other-centeredness. Hello from Toronto, Pooja. Hey to you, Pooja. Raising 3 entrepreneurs. Good for you, Shun. Make moments, says Genuine Easy. Yeah, you know, everything in your experience can be an opportunity to teach. It can be a teachable moment. I think, again, the most important thing you can do in parenting is model the behavior that you want to see in your children. If you want them to get up early and really hit it, get up early and hit it. If you want them to work hard, be a hard worker. If you want them to learn how to have margin and balance, you got to demonstrate that. So, Mary says, my son is watching with me and says, thank you. Awesome. Somebody from Guatemala just joined us. Somebody from Toledo. Any other questions at all? Tori says, what's one way you keep this in front of you when life schedule gets crazy? You know, the first thing I do every morning is I get oriented around my most important values. So for me, this is what this looks like. I get up at 5 in the morning. First thing I do, I read the Bible, I pray, and again, I'm focused on this transcendent worldview, the eternal values that are the most important. I'm not going to start preaching, so don't let me scare you. But that's it. That's how I get grounded. I realize that I'm not just, you know, stardust here spinning around in some galaxy and don't mean anything, but that my life does have meaning. So that's where it starts for me. Somebody says, Oh, I'm going to lose that one. Lori says, do kids ever get published or must you self-publish? Occasionally they get published, but it's only if their stuff is really good. And the thing that we've got to keep from doing, I think, that in our quest to affirm our children, we just kind of can't give a prize for showing up. And I think this is kind of contributes to this entitlement mentality where everybody, gets an award, everybody gets recognized for showing up. And it doesn't usually work that way. You have to work harder than that. So teach your kids if they can't get published on the first try. I mean, I was rejected by 30 publishers on my first book before I finally got one to say yes. That taught me to hone my craft, to get better at what I'm doing. I just didn't get an award for showing up. Okay, Marissa says, John, ask your question again because we missed that. Joy Grobably's on. Hey, Joy, I agree with all this. My parents have 6 kids and 4 of us are entrepreneurs. Awesome. Jeremy says, got to cut out early. Okay, see ya. John Meese, what do you think the biggest mindset difference is between young entrepreneurs and the rest? I'll tell you where it starts, John. Young entrepreneurs take responsibility for their lives. They're not expecting that if they just go to college that somebody owes them a job. Or if they just show up that the government owes them a handout. And I might start getting on a rant here, so forgive me. But no, young entrepreneurs, any entrepreneurs, take responsibility for the outcome of their own lives. And that's where it's got to start. Marissa's saying, yes, preach. Chris is saying, please rant. Yeah, and I do think there's a certain level of confidence that entrepreneurs have to just have the courage to try things. But let me just tell you something. Courage is not the absence of fear. And I talk about this all the time. But usually when I start new things, a new initiative or whatever, I'm scared. And I've taught my kids that. Just because you're scared, that doesn't disqualify you from taking initiative. Because that's how all entrepreneurs are. Everybody I know that's accomplished anything significant, whether it's an entrepreneur, a CEO, a celebrity, somebody that's created something, started with fear. And that's okay. It just can't keep you from moving forward. How do you help guide a youngster towards entrepreneurialism when you're not an entrepreneur? Marissa, remind me of that book in a second. Again, I think you got to model it yourself or get them around entrepreneurs. In a lot of cities, there are young entrepreneurs clubs. Get them around other people that are more enterprising or people maybe in your church or your social group, that's more entrepreneurial. See if your kid can be an intern for them. How do you teach hard work without love of money? That's a great question. I've known a few people that had the love of money, but honestly, not many. That's not usually the problem. The people I've met in my life, and you guys may disagree with this, the people that are most obsessed about money are the people that don't have any. Because that's what they're thinking about all the time. How do I get more money? I can't pay my bills. I need more money. I need more money. I need more money. People that reach a certain level, and I'm not saying even wealthy, but some people that can, they're not in debt, they're not stressed out by money, don't think about it as much. They're able to think about the stuff that's more important. So that's just my experience. Your mileage may differ. Okay, anything else here? My dad told me I couldn't be a magician. Best motivation ever. And this is from @TimDavidMagic. I'm assuming you meant that the fact that he told you couldn't motivated you to actually try it. Yeah, sometimes some of us are like that. I'm kind of like that too. Tell me I can't do something and I'll figure out a way to get it done. Marissa, by the way, mentioned earlier, and scroll by quickly, was Jack Canfield's book, Success Principles. That is a fantastic book that I highly recommend as well. Thank you, Marissa, for putting that up. Michael, do you know any techniques to read faster or better? No, there's a lot out there. I just read, and I read a lot. And when I'm listening to books on audible.com, I'm listening to them at 1.25, the normal speed, or 1.5. That's going to train me to read faster too. Somebody asked here, what if your spouse does not see the need or want entrepreneurial children? Well, I think then you got to sell it to them. You got to tell them why it's valuable, why it's important, and make it a conversation. I wouldn't beat them over the head, but I would draw them out, ask them what their thinking is about that. Okay. Jacob said he started a screen printing business 10 years ago in my garage. Man, that has been the story of so many entrepreneurs, is to start in a garage and just go from there. Okay, look, I want to ask a question before we finish here, because we're just about done. I promised 30 minutes, and that's what it's going to be. But one question, I'm thinking about the best time of day to do this. So what I'm thinking about is around lunchtime Central Standard Time. I had thought about doing it in the evening, but my oldest daughter, Megan, said to me, "Dad, I don't think that models margin, because people that are home need to be with their families. They don't need to be watching you." I thought, dang, when your kids hold you accountable like that, that's awesome. So I'm thinking about the middle of the day, maybe around lunch, at least Central Time. I know that won't be lunch for everybody, but what do you guys think? I'm just watching these roll in. Somebody said, "Wise daughter, lunchtime is a great time to be recharged." Awesome. Good time? Great. Midday is excellent. Yes, sounds good. Okay, guys, that's what we're going to do. We're going to try it around lunch, and I'll remind you in my blog post. Tomorrow, Tuesday, again, please use the hashtag #DailyMentor. You can find today's post at michaelhyatt.com/wealth. And tomorrow will be kind of a free-for-all. We'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about or whatever's happened to me that sparked my own interest. But I'll see you guys tomorrow. Let's set the time. Let's make this tomorrow at noon Central Daylight Time, okay? So I look forward to seeing you then. Until then, hope you guys have a great day. Go out there and kill it.